So my name is Gulrez Khan. I work as a data science leader at PayPal, and I'm coming from the United States. So thank you everyone for hosting me. And when I start any of my presentation, I start with a visual. I'm a very visual person, you'll see, and this is like talking about data and the visualization. And as you see, like I started my career back in India in 2005. I moved to Seattle and then joined Microsoft, kind of born and brought up in Microsoft. 5 years ago, I joined PayPal, and this is where I am today. And like our friend mentioned, I also wrote this book, Drawing Data with Kids. It's about cultivating data literacy in our younger generation. So I'll be doing a book signing after this event, after this session, so do join me, and if you've got any questions. All right. So typical journey of a data science project, right? When we kick off any data science project, we start by asking an interesting question, right? We start by asking the questions, and then we think of how do we solve that. We get the data. Often, like when I talk to the students and the people who are in the academics, they think like, okay, getting data is easy, right? But in the corporate world, you don't get those CSVs and then Excel files easily. You have to work with the data governance and whatnot, and a lot of your data dreams will die at this stage. Get the data. The third thing is about exploration. So we spend a lot of time in data exploration, and then we create some models, and then finally we communicate and visualize. Now I'll change this visual a little bit, and this is about how much time we spend in each of these phases, right? In the problem formulation phase, we spend a bunch of time, which is very important, right? Getting data, talking to those data teams, it's very important. We spend time on that. We spend a lot of time in data exploration, then model creation. But then look at this last pillar, right? This is just 5 minutes before your presentation. You are dumping all your Jupyter notebooks and taking the screenshot into a PowerPoint. And this is what we're going to talk about today. We'll give some love to communicate and visualize. Okay. The universe is made of stories, not atoms. How true it is. We all love stories. I've got 3 kids. I tell a lot of stories to them, and then I tell a lot of stories to adults. So since very early childhood days, we have been listening and telling stories. But then we enter here, in this corporate world. How many times you have all been in those meetings, in those conference rooms where everyone is just buried in their laptops or on their cell phones? I see a few over here as well. But hardly paying any attention to the poor presenter, right? But then, this is what happens when you start telling a story. You'll see their heads slowly popping up, and they start paying attention to you. This is the time to make your pitch. This is the time to share your insights. And when I talk about these things, people often come and say, yes, we understand the art of telling stories is important, but how do we tell stories with data, Gulrez? And I'll talk more about that, but before that, let me tell you a story. So a few days back, I was very occupied with work and was hardly paying any attention at home. So naturally, the NSAT, the net satisfaction, the at home was going down. And my wife and my kids were not very happy about that. So I thought, all right, one fine day I said, today I'm going to rest my neural network and have quality time with the family. Listening to this, my wife gave me a smile back, and my kids yelled, yay, today we're going to play with Legos. Legos? I thought I wanted to rest my neural network. With that, I said, all right, bring it on. So they brought all these different colors of the Legos, the reds, the greens, yellows, whites, blues, all in different shapes and sizes. And I started doing ETL. Extract, transform, load. And after spending some 30 minutes with the Legos, here are my creations. This IKEA sofa for you, an apple tree, and ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you for the first time the much awaited, much rumored Surface phone. So you saw I come from Microsoft, so not iPhone, but Surface phone. So looking at my inventions, my daughter giggled, she laughed, and then she asked me a question. She calls me Abbu, which means dad. She said, Abbu, did someone leave the phone on the sofa, or did someone leave it under the tree? What she was craving for, she was craving for a story. I spent all my time, all my energy on creating these beautiful inventions, but there was no story. And I said, Abu did so much thing. Now you create any story and just fit in. You know, kids create all these stories and you give them anything, they'll do zzzz, and they say, this is my phone, or like, this is my parking, this is my house, whatnot. And it was almost 7 p.m. by that time, and my wife called us for dinner. So we went, and we had a wonderful dinner. And after dinner, my daughter, she went to bed, and I came back and started working. And when I was working, my visualizations looked exactly like the Lego structures. I spent so much time in getting the data, cleaning the data, doing those ETLs, but then when it came to telling a story, I fumbled. I just left it to the audience or the stakeholders, and I'm telling, fit in any story that you want. And this is where we fail. So when I was reflecting on that, I thought maybe I need to do something to be able to tell stories with data. And I've got a few principles that I'm going to teach today, but the first principle is something which I already taught you. Can anyone tell what principle was that? Exactly. Storytelling, right? It's just the first 2 minutes in the presentation, the audience decides whether they want to give attention to you or want to just check WhatsApp or LinkedIn, right? So that's the first principle, which is very important. Second, panels. And I come from India. Back home, like English is not my first language, but I remember as a kid, as a 7 or 8-year-old, every Sunday I would go and look for this cartoon strip in a newspaper. I would grab that and I would always look forward to that. So storytelling with data is like writing a comic book. If you look into this Garfield comic, you'll see there are panels. 1, 2, 3, 7 panels, right? And a story is being told without too many words in it. Can we do something similar when we tell stories with data? Often what we see is with the advancement of the UI tools like Power BI, Tableau, Qlik, and bring any of your favorite tool, they have made it very easier, and then we are dumping everything into a single place, right? So that's the second principle. Third is colors. And here I have a quiz for you. Let's see who answers this first. So let's see. Count the number of Diet Coke cans in this picture. Fast. So 6, someone said 7. Okay. Is it easier now? And now? And now? What happened? So this is called pre-attentive attributes, right? So when we, I don't know if you have been to some magic show or something, like they use these pre-attentive attributes a lot, like they will be doing something with this hand and then doing something else, and you're focusing on other places, but that's where the magic happens. You can do magic when you are presenting data as well. Your audience is very busy. You're fighting for their attention from things like WhatsApp, Twitter, or Instagram, whatnot, right? How do you tell story in a faster way, right? there is a term called data vomit. I don't know if you have heard of. Like what we do is we dump everything in a single place, and we ask our stakeholders about things, right? So look how far we came, right? This is what our visualizations usually look like. Multiple colors and whatnot, and we are talking about Diet Coke cans in this picture, and the audience is scratching their head, what's going on? But then if you make their job easier, you reduce the cognitive load on your audience, it makes their life easier, it's easier to tell the stories and make an impact. Okay, so I've got, yeah. So pre-attentive attributes can be in different forms. Orientation, right? So no matter what happened, you'll pay attention to the slant line, length, width, size, shape, curvature, added marks, enclosures. We talked about color and position, right? Feel free to take a picture of this. These are the things which you can use, not in just the data presentation, but it could be any presentations. And now that you have your taking your pictures, I can pose, post it on LinkedIn, tag me in. Okay, so now I've got another quiz for you. No, not this, but so for this, like no matter what happens, our eyes pay attention to the oddballs. This is my bad drawing, but that's the thing I wanted to share. So we talked about stories, we talked about using panels, we talked about using colors, and now text, and a quiz. This is an area graph. You'll see some line going up and down. So let me add some text. Okay. So now you see like this is about certain topic, and it has got a yearly trend. January, February, March, goes to October, November, December. The question is, this is about a particular topic people post on Facebook, and which follows this trend. What is this topic people post on Facebook which follows this trend year over year? You see some spikes happening, like this is the month of March. There is some kind of a seasonality that you see. Then you see like the winter days, it's kind of a high over there. What is this topic that people post on Facebook year over year and which follows this trend? Let's see who answers this first. Black Friday, no. I know you are into shopping mode these days. Valentine's Day, vacations, skiing. Okay, no. Two more and then I will reveal. Holidays, no. One more. Present and taxes, no. Okay, let's see. Okay. Peak breakup times according to Facebook status updates, right? Someone said presents, you will need presents after this. Okay. So the principle here was about using text. What happened when I just added the title on this page, right? Quickly, you were able to get what I'm trying to say, right? So, and again, the caveat here is it is very important that you choose the right title, because this is something the audience will retain when they go out of this room. So be careful on how you use that. Let's add more text. Okay, Valentine's Day, you see some kind of a spike, a bad joke, or like forgot to book a restaurant Valentine's Day, right? Spring cleaning, April Fool's Day, a bad joke, Mondays coming from bad weekends, summer holidays, and 2 weeks before the winter holidays, we are somewhere over here. And the lowest point is the Christmas Day. Who does that? So what happened, right? I know, like, it's funny, it's all of that. But again, the principle that I'm talking about is using text. Usually, when we are presenting data, we are presenting numbers, it's something like this, right? This is what you get from your Python Jupyter notebook or R or whatever thing you are using. You dump it, you're leaving it to the audience, okay, fit in any story you want. But then you add a title, and then you add more annotations, right? Here, if you see, no colors have been used because there is not a specific thing I wanted to talk about, right? If I wanted to talk about a particular this period, I would highlight it with a different color. Source is very important. You need to add sources of where your data is coming from. So that's about text. And I think I might have another one. OK. So this is a visual which I created. I am a Muslim, and then we celebrate Ramadan. And for Ramadan, our cycles change, right? So our things are a little different. So when I tell it to my colleagues that, hey, I might not be able to join the morning meetings, they might not get it, right? Yeah, I know, like, you're fasting, but what's going on? So then I created this visual, like it's been shared millions of times in different platforms. But here, if you see, right, most days, like, this is how I spend my day, right? You've got sleeping, and then prayer times in green, and then eating, all of that stuff. And so we are somewhere over here. So just before this meeting, I went and I did my prayer. But Ramadan, things are different, right? So here you see the night pattern is different. So sleeping, we sleep very late. And then like fasting, not even water. But again, like when you share it in this visual form, people get it more easily, right? I know a lot of people, like they came out after they saw the visual, they saw, okay, I know my colleague, like he was fasting, but when I saw it in a visual form, I can understand and have more empathy, or I can change my work accordingly. So, pictures. Okay. All right. So then I've got a demo for you. As I said, like I moved from India, and I work in the United States now. And when I moved from India to the United States, I moved to Seattle. I don't know if anyone has been to Seattle? One person? Okay. Two? Okay. Awesome. So you might answer some questions. Okay, so when I moved to Seattle, like back home, we never had a car, so I didn't know, so I learned driving over there. And I used to get a lot of parking violation tickets. And I know like people get these souvenirs and whatnot, and my refrigerator has been decorated with all these parking violation tickets that I get, and my wife would like put that as a sarcasm, that hey, you get these souvenirs. So that's past now. But anyways, like when I was tired of the sarcasm, and I said, okay, as a data nerd, what can I do? So I went to the seattle.gov website, and from there you can pull all the data of the different parking violation tickets issued. And this was 2016, I believe. So the number one insight that came out of it is 45,000 parking violation tickets were issued in 2016. So I told my wife, hey, I'm not the only person who get these tickets. So the second thing is 8 a.m. is the peak time to get the ticket. The officers are fresh. They had their cup of coffee, so avoid parking illegally. And third, weekends, parking is free over there in Seattle, so you see less number of violations. And then summer months, you see a spike over there as well. Now, there were two people who said they were from Seattle, right? So there is a big bubble over here near the Harbor Avenue. Do you know what this is? What place is this? Let me try to help, and if I can zoom in. So this was created in Power BI, and it's a wonderful tool. So you see a big bubble over here, right? And from here, you get a wonderful view of the Seattle skyline. So there is the Seattle Space Needle and all these beautiful places. What is this place? Okay, if you haven't been there, this is a place called Alki Beach. And let me zoom in a little further. You got to love the technology, right? You see the parking lot over here. So there is a parking lot, and then you see the people parking on the road. And when people are busy, they are taking pictures and having a good time, the police officer is right there to issue tickets. And that was another insight that came out of it. But again, the thing which I wanted to share was, this is kind of an interactive dashboard which I created, and you can still use some text over here to be able to tell stories. Like, it doesn't have to be like just completely without that. Now, going back to the demo, I've got another one. Okay. Another example which I want to share, and this is crocodile sighting in Queensland, Australia. I haven't created this one, but I love how this has been created. You see, there were around 2,000 reported sightings, 5 found to be an imminent threat to human safety with the mouth wide open, right? And then our crocodiles moving to south, there is this geographical thing which is over there, and more things over here, right? Think about it, like if there were no pictures, no text, would it look that appealing? Would you think of maybe it was a pie chart or the bar graphs? Maybe you'll not pay as much attention as you're seeing over here, right? So our dashboards, they don't have to look boring. You can use these examples. And you can find inspiration everywhere, right? I open this New York Times or Washington Post or pick any of your favorite newspaper, and they do a lot of these things, like with the data journalism, inspire, right? Things are different, like these are storytellers. They want people to read their stories, so get inspired from them. Okay, let's see what I've got next. Okay, animation. So here I've got another demo, and how do I go back? No. Okay. Okay. Anyone here from Bangladesh? I doubt, but no harm in asking. No? Okay. So here I will try to combine all the principles that I talked about. What was the first principle? Stories. Second? Panels. Third? Fourth? Fifth? Animation. Yeah. All right, you guys are paying attention. So I come from India, but Bangladesh and Pakistan was part of India at one time, and this is the story about Bangladesh. And here I'm using text, as you see, I'm using panels, first of all. Like, it is in the form of a newspaper, in newspaper style. Everything is not right in front of your eyes, and I'm trying to reduce the cognitive load. I'm using the gray color. Always start with a gray color, right? Gray color, and then maybe add some, if you want to pop up anything, you can use a different color. So I'm using green color for Bangladesh, which is the hero of the story. The green color comes from the flag of Bangladesh. Okay, then using panels, right? So Bangladesh is very interesting. Like, if you see the population of that country, like it is around at the 7th or 8th place. But what makes Bangladesh really interesting is the population density. And this is around 1,100 people per square kilometer. And when I usually talk to people in the US, I say, this is like shifting half the population of United States to the state of Florida. So this is how many people we are talking about. I don't have a good example for here. But so this is about population density of Bangladesh. And now we will go to animation, right? So you have got a story a little bit talking about Bangladesh. A better story would have been, I've been to Bangladesh, I saw so many people and whatnot, getting the interest of the audience. I'm using panels, I'm using text, and I'm using colors. And I'm now using animation. So it is the year 1962, and the world was divided into two different categories. There was the industrialized world and the developing world. And let me do this. Okay, stop. Not yet. Okay. So you have got the x-axis over here, which is the child mortality rate, kids dying before they attain the age of 5. You've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And then the y-axis is kids per woman. The size of the bubble shows the population of that country. You see India, like we are big. So India is bigger in size, so that's that. It's the year 1962. The world is divided into the industrialized world with United States, UK, Japan. They've got less kids per woman, less child mortality rate. And here you've got the developing world with India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, 26 kids dying before they attain the age of 5. So this is the percent mortality rate. And the kids per woman was also higher, right? So let's see what happens next. I want to highlight Bangladesh because, okay, anyways, let's start. So things are changing with the year passing by, bubbles are moving. Pakistan has fast moved to reduce the child mortality rate. China, we got the data later, it's quickly moved to the industrialized world. India has beaten Pakistan in kids per women. And look at Bangladesh, it is going fast. It has beaten Pakistan in kids per women, and it's going after India, it's going fast. Will it cross India? Look at China. China is already there with US, UK, Japan. And in the year 1998, Bangladesh has beaten both India and Pakistan. And all these countries, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, have moved from the developing world to the industrialized world. But this is something very important, right? The world has made advancement. You see, like from 26 kids, 7 kids per woman, the child mortality rate has reduced from 26 to 2. Now at this time, when we are worried about the wars, we are worried about the epidemics, and our heart breaks seeing the children and whatnot being affected, this is a brighter side. Things have improved in the past, and things will improve, right? I'll repeat this again because this is a wonderful story. And this is animation, right? 63, 64, 66, you see Pakistan moving fast. This looks like a soccer game. Ball is moving fast, and China is moving quickly to the industrialized world. And then this ball of Bangladesh going fast, it has beaten Pakistan in the kids per women, going after India, and fast. And then all these different countries, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, China, moving from the developing world to the industrialized world. This is animation, right? So if you use these principles correctly, your storytelling can be very powerful. Often, like we spend, if you go back to the different pillars I was talking about, we spend a lot of time in the first few pillars, but when it comes to the impact part or the last mile, we don't spend as much time as we should, right? Don't do too many projects, but do one project and then tell these stories multiple places and different forums, and you'll see the impact. So that was animation. Okay, let's go back to the slides. Let's see what we've got next. Yeah, so I don't know if you understand German over here. Anyone understand German? Okay, there are a few. Okay, so my book is being translated in German right now, so this is just a snapshot from there. And as I said, like I've got 3 kids. The example which I showed was for the child mortality and then the kids per women. And now I'm trying to teach the same concept to my kids. And this is a snapshot from my book. And my son, like, he's very upset about losing the game of snakes and ladder. And he says he gets more snakes than ladder, so he doesn't like it. So we started recording how many snakes each person got and how many ladder each person got. And then we segmented, okay, you've got these 4 different quadrants. Which quadrant do you want to be to win the game? And it turned out like he was having more letters the time when we played the game. And this is about teaching kids about data literacy, right? The same examples that they would see in the future. You've got less number of snakes, more number of ladders. We do these things in our day job, and our kids can learn from it as well, right? If you present it in a different way. Okay. Feel free to take pictures. This is like where I'm combining few things, different examples we talked about, and this is kind of a retention. And now you've got your camera. Okay, so this is where like you'll be able to retain, right? So when you think of, okay, different examples that you are doing, you'll see, okay, panels, right? You'll remember the Garfield example. You'll remember the peak breakup times, right? Diet Coke canes, and then Bangladesh. So every time when you're creating a presentation, think of these different things, and it will help. Now comes the most interesting part, which is my book. And this is a passion project. Let's see. So upskilling is important, but it shouldn't be at the cost of screen time. My wife is very mindful of screen time, so this is completely off-screen activity. And here, making kids data literate, one chart at a time. And here, every chapter begins with a story, because stories are important. I'm advocating stories. And so here, like, it's not a regular book about the curriculum. Here, this is kind of a realistic fiction of me teaching data to my daughter. We have got a snore graph. And you've got sneeze graph, roar graph, and meow meow graph. This is like also teaching them about analyzing different patterns. And here you've got data, snakes and ladder we talked about. And then getting data from the board games, right? So we play a game of Scrabble a lot. So you'll see some examples from there, and you see like how we are analyzing it. And then there is some kind of a heat maps as well. The book is being translated in different languages right now. German is almost done. And today I'll be doing a book signing after this session. So meet me in the VIP
registration.
VIP registration, yeah. So meet me over there, and let's see. The other things that I do, and I know like my host is here to kick me out.
No, I'm not. I thought you were finishing. I was just getting ready. So
okay.
Feel free to finish.
Okay, no worries. So the other thing that I do here is I do a lot of these conference talks, and I do these workshops. The stuff that I presented right now was like a keynote session, but I do these half-day, full-day workshops as well for adults and kids separately. Yeah. So I do those things. If you are interested in any of those things, feel free to reach out. Connect me on LinkedIn, and you can come now. Thank you. Okay.
Great talk. Thank you so much, Gulrez. I want to congratulate you first and give you a little certificate of appreciation from us. And now we open the floor for any questions.
Yeah. Any questions?
Over there.
Hi, great talk. Is there any talk about publishing your book in Serbian or any Western Balkan language?
So I published it, self-published that. So if you have some contacts over here in Serbia, I'll be happy to do that. If we need to translate in a different language, and if anyone of you is interested in helping out, again, please connect. Right now, this is in English. I've got few copies that I brought together. So you can take it for your kids, some good gift. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Over here in the front row. Just a second, we have a microphone for you.
Hi. What tools do you usually use for this?
Yeah, this is one question that I get in every presentation. The question was, what tool do I use? So the answer is like it's not about a particular tool. things that I talked about today is tool agnostic. You can do any of these things in Excel, Power BI, Tableau. I would say pick up any tool that you like or accessible to you, and then apply these principles, and things will become more easier for you to use and more powerful. Any other questions?
I mean, if no one has one, I have one. Like,
Yeah.
what motivated you to even start writing
Yeah.
for data literacy to kids? And yeah, generally something about that.
Yeah. So when I started my journey as a data scientist or like in the tech world, I know like in one of the panel discussions, someone asked me this question: what motivated you to join tech? And my answer is money.
Okay, honest. Thank you.
So I never wanted to be someone sitting in front of the computers all my day. I would have been happy writing poems and books. But coming from a humble background, we didn't have much choices. We need to pay off the loans. So this was one good option. So I chose tech. But then now after like spending some 15, 20 years, like you kind of bring everything back. So now I'm able to do my passion thing. So I'm now writing, I'm telling stories. So that's that. Now the other thing is, someone said, right, so if you are looking for a book and you don't find that, write that book, right? So when I'm teaching it to my kids, I saw there is this gap. No matter like which career you choose, they will be dealing with data, right?
Yeah,
They will be either presenting the data or will be in the audience sitting and listening how the data is presented. Is someone manipulating them with data? It's easier to lie with data as well. So those are the things that I combined and added that in the book.
Okay, yeah, definitely makes sense. I mean, I think a lot of people can really connect with that. Having the passion for something, but realizing that maybe this is not the right time to start it. You have to do some other things, accomplish some other stuff, and then get back into it. So, are there any more questions? If not, as we've already mentioned, he'll be at the VIP registration table, signing books, and you're free to ask him any additional questions. So, thank you again, and can we get another round of applause?
Thank you.